There it is.
Kishpen we manoyat beno anishanabe. Kishpen we nanandao goes it wenigo.
Your microphone has been turned on.
Good morning, everyone, and especially to the elders. This morning I acknowledge the elders have always had a very significant role in our society as an Anishinaabe people. It was the elders that always reminded the people of how we should. Kishpen we manoyat beno anishanabe. Kishpen we nanandao goes it wenigo. Pigochejegi chinas kange we naninga gijimini goes it. Gijemanito we minan anishanabe kinagego aninge inchaya miwe kaijenika take minopimadisi. Good morning, everyone, and especially to the elders. This morning I acknowledge the elders have always had a very significant role in our society as an Anishinaabe people. It was the elders that always reminded the people of how we should be living, how we should be behaving, and how we should walk as an Anishinaabe people. Whenever prayers are done, prayers are always done to invoke the Spirit and the grandfathers to come within our presence, to be around us, to guide us, to teach us, to protect us. There was a law that our people believed in, that they practiced, and it was called the great binding law of the Creator. And our people knew, recognized, acknowledged that everything that was created was connected to this higher power of spirit that we refer to as our great Creator. It was the Creator that created everything that we are, everything that we see, and everything that we can be is derived through the blessing of our great Creator. It is said that the first teaching that was given was a teaching of respect, which was symbolized by the buffalo. In the language I would say, Kimini goes Anishinaabe, Chikendangi Manachiti, and Gat Konangishkodebijiki. And to know respect is really to know how to give. Think of the buffalo when there were millions and millions of buffalo running across the prairies and giving of themselves so that the people could survive. Every part of that buffalo was used, the bones, the inside of the buffalo, everything was used. That's how much the buffalo, how much he respected the people, that buffalo gave every part of its being. What a beautiful way of life, to know and recognize how important that respect is. And the second teaching was a teaching of love, which was symbolized by the eagle. It has always been understood, the essence and the spirit that is within each of us carries the energy and the spirit of love. We were created through the unconditional love of the great spirit. Kimina Anishinaabe miwe kinamag kinamagewen miwe jainjigewen. Kinyu ugi kinamon Anishinaabe ani minekinenda ko kawaya chi jainjiget. And whenever the ceremonies are carried on, whether you're going in a sweat or in a sun dance or any of the ceremonies, that eagle comes. You go to the sacred site, you go and make your offerings, and the eagle appears. Probably the three most powerful words that can be said, I love you, I love you, In our language, we say, powerful.
Love you.
The moment that you begin to say that, something happens inside here, inside of you, in your spirit and your heart. That's powerful words to say. Love is the energy. Love is the spirit that has everything to do with life. The third teaching that the people were given that laid the foundation of having a good life was the teaching of courage. And the bear was always there to offer that spirit of courage. You gotta have courage. And what is it to have courage for what? You got to have courage to do the right thing. There's many, many different ways to do the wrong thing, but only one way to do the right thing that's expressed in the heart. And it takes a lot of courage. Do you have the courage to be an Anishinaabe? To really live and walk the teachings of your people? People that understand the teachings, you would take the tobacco and then you would go to the land and say, grandfather, help me. Help me to have courage to do the right thing. And that bear comes. Spiritually, that bear will come. Will come and help you, to give you the courage to do the right thing. And the fourth teaching that we were given was the teaching of honesty that was represented by the one they call Sabe or Bigfoot. Honesty to our people meant that you learn to speak from your heart. Get out of your head, get out of your mind. Because your mind is gonna lead you many times the opposite of what the heart is trying to express. To be honest is to be able to be true to your word. So that Sabe was always there to offer that inspiration, in being honest. How to be honest. Now that's a good one, that one. I remember growing up and, the elders, whenever they agreed to something, they would shake their hand and say, yeah, it'll be done. They didn't need to write on paper, on any agreement or contract. Their contract was their heart. Because the truth was spoken from their heart. And the old people would always say, is that you learn to speak from the heart. The fifth teaching was the teaching of wisdom that was represented by the beaver. And to know wisdom is to know that you have a gift. So that beaver has always been there to help us to remember that if we want to build a better life, we have to use the gifts that we have. Everyone was given a gift. You have a gift, you have a gift, you have a gift. But to know wisdom is once you know your gift, you use that gift to serve the people, to serve your family, and to serve your community. That's wisdom. The beaver, whenever the fire goes through, the beaver will come first. And he'll work with the water, and he's going to fix it up, and everything starts to get green. And all these other animals start to come, the ducks, and all these other animals, they come, and it's beautiful. But the beaver is the one that goes in first. What's he doing? He's building. And what is he using to build? Is those two sharp teeth that he has. Now, if that beaver just lay on the shore and not using his gift of sharp teeth to cut trees, his teeth would grow long and he would die. That applies to all of us. If you don't use your gift, you're going to get sick. Everyone was given something. The sixth teaching is the teaching of humbleness that was represented by the wolf. And the wolf was there to remind us to live a humble life. And to live a humble life is to acknowledge, first of all, that there is a higher power of spirit that we, of course, as a people, refer to as the great mystery, the great creator. When you walk down the trail and that wolf is walking that same trail and is walking towards you, the first thing that wolf is going to do is going to stop, he's going to bow his head. Not because he's scared of you. He's humbled by the presence of the human being. To know humbleness is to think of your fellow human being before you think of anybody else. That you always think of your brothers and your sisters. You always think of the elders. You always think of those before you think of yourself. To know truth through the grandmother turtle, who has brought the teaching of truth, is to know that we cannot live truth until we're able to live the teachings as they've been, shared and expressed. Pigo kina waya shiga chigwe mi kang mi we te boywen. Ogre da shi te boywen. Mi anish en satang anish na be ani gagi jimini go sa chibmuset. Ske we gagi mini tanish na be ani kevin chayat mi we min of madizin. Kina gego kimi na anish na be gevin ani chayat mi we min of madizin. Ogre da shi pigo gevin chimi kang ye te boywen. Anin ugunene manachitiwen, ugunene jainjigewen, ugunene zongitewen, ugunene gagzimini goza danishinabe, ugunene de kanche spendiziteya. Mikina ani sheshe mini tanishinabe chen suttang te boywen. Te boywen chi kendang eyat mewe gjemanitu. E kendang gewin eyat madizwene no commerce. Mi ani she when we say the turtle in our language, we say mikinak, and then we say that the turtle mikanake, that turtle is leaving a trail that we are to follow. What is the turtle carrying? The turtle is carrying the teachings of respect, love, courage, honesty, wisdom, and humility. That's what that grandmother is carrying. I feel, that the richness of who we are as an Anishinaabe people. And that richness comes in the knowledge and the understanding that we have. And when we look at the 7 teachings that we have and hold that have evolved over thousands and thousands of years, the teachings that we are given reflect the identity of the Spirit that is in each and every one of us. You carry all those teachings inside of you. As long as you have an ounce of blood of Anishinaabe, you have the genetic memory to know those teachings. The holy spot of our people is the knowledge, the ceremony, the language, and the relationship that we have with the land. That's the holy spot of our people. What an awesome gift that the Creator gave us as Anishinaabe people.
When you heard him tell that story about the eagle, think about what came into your mind as Native peoples. Because these are our teachings. I went to a puberty ceremony. I was invited to one in Apache lands back in New Mexico. And one of the songs, they were doing the ceremonial songs for the young lady. And one of the songs was Calling of the Eagles. And when that song started, we were all standing around. There's a big fire, and we had the dancers out there, and we had all the people circling, supporting that young lady. And when that song, Calling of the Eagles, came on, 4 eagles flew in. It was awesome. Awesome to see. We have our stories. We all have our stories on this. Native ways of knowing. What he just talked about here, native ways of knowing. The way we learn this, observation, demonstration, contextual. We have a context for what we learn. It's decompartmentalized. I'm going to show that with an example that I think is probably one of the prime examples on this is the Hawaiian sailing. Competency is tied to survival. It's adaptable. We have to always remember that. Our cultures are dynamic. They're adaptable. And it's relational. Very important. Again, you saw that in the video. And there's no word for science in our cultures, but we did not exclude science. What we did when we were observing all these things and doing all these things, we included the theories and the concepts of physics, chemistry, astrology, botany, pharmacology, particularly pharmacology, because that's what the Western medicine recognized. They learned a lot from what we knew. So they took from us and applied it. So what I'm saying, let's take from them and let's apply it. I'm saying integration here. Weather, the sacred and the interlocking. Storytelling is our way of learning, doing, discussions. And this is in relation to the whole and the natural world. The example of the native Hawaiians that I was going to give is they perfected sailing. And people throughout the world still copied their example on this. They looked at the swell patterns, the currents, the ocean currents, the moon phases, the star, planet, sun positions, bird migrations, all of that. And they were able to say, okay, on this day, we are going to move. This is when we're going to start. And this is when we're going to start taking notice, and maybe we should stop or slow down. Or they learned all of this. The Inuit whalers, they determined the presence of whales by listening for their breathing sounds. The International Whaling Commission watched these whales as they passed and counted them that way. What was found was the Inuit count was verified by aerial surveys. Our ways are good. Navajo in the teaching of opposites. When I was little, I was taught that within each one of us are opposites. Opposites of everything. Good, bad, male, female. Did we know that when science learned these things, did we know that within each of us there's estrogen and testosterone? That's what science tells us. Medical school, we were taught that. Did Navajos know this? No. They knew this from their teachings, that within each one of us is male and female. I'm going to do a little bit of supporting literature. How much time do I have? We don't know? Okay. Well, I'll take that as a positive then. Okay. Oh, here we go. Supporting literature. What we are finding in the literature, this is just one example. There was a woman who requested some evidence on how our cultures can improve outcomes, and it was in specifically on our court systems, our tribal court systems, and the Western ways. The request was sent to Anne Helene's group, so she put it out to her advisory group. So I went through the literature and I searched and found how our cultures positively impact. I think I came up with at least 8, and that wasn't even a comprehensive search. Now I'm a researcher, so I know comprehensive searches. So, but I came up quickly with 8, and we provided, I think, that document. It might still be going through some overviews by the staff, but we provided that document to that woman. But one example that we found is ethnic identity is very, very important to self-esteem and well-being. Self-esteem and well-being. Central for American Indian Alaska Native youth, ancillary for white youth. They don't identify as much with that ethnic being. American Indian youth with bicultural competence, they're adept in both cultures. Significantly less hopelessness. Integration. Studies with firm ethnic identity, or students with firm ethnic identity, had strength, confidence, and academic success. So when I heard something about our making sure that we address the youth in our programs. Remember this. Ethnic identity is important, always, to include in our teachings. Get our youth back up to the teachings that our Anishinaabe Ojibwe elder talked about. And by the way, the reason I chose that slide, I know there are 500, 600 plus tribal nations. The reason I chose that slide is because we're on their lands, among other groups, but we're on their lands. I wanted to honor them by that. Other literature. This is the Red Road to Wellness study. And these are their key concepts when they develop their intervention, their treatment program for substance use disorders. They said, develop it your own way. And this is the point I'm trying to get across today. Develop it your own way. They took it down to the detail. They looked at how are we going to state our goal? So it's not stated as a white man would state it, but let's state it the way we state it. An integrated and holistic approach utilizing Western ways as a framework, but putting in our Aboriginal practices, our ways of believing, our values into that framework. We're taking out what AA presented to us, right? But we're putting in our ways, but we're using the framework. Learn the white man's way, do it better. Culture and historical orientation. That was their anchor, and I talked about that already. They had a part of their teachings to the clients was the history of our people, and it got to historical trauma. What did that mean? So what they did is they had a writing exercise for the clients, and they said, "What is this?" After hearing about the history of our people, what does this mean to you? Now, many of them had not been to residential schools, and that was the premise they were using at the time. But they were still able to hear it and write about it, those who had not been, and identify with it. Sun dances, sweats, pipe ceremonies, smudging, those were all used. Traditional teachings were used. And the outcomes, cultural analysis. You look at Western ways of thinking, Western research. They have their analysis, right? I mean, it's everything you can think of. There's a whole bunch of stuff in there, and that's their culture. That's Western ways culture of looking at analysis. Well, we have our ways too. We have our ways too. The outcomes to this from the clients, the counselor, and these are quotes, the counselor was not critical. The counselor was understanding, was encouraging, allowing the client to talk without interruption. Boy, that's huge. In Western medicine, as a physician, what we found is when the patient comes in to see us, within 30 seconds to a minute of the patient talking, the physician interrupts. These clients appreciated that no interruption was there. It was non-judgmental. Other comments. I learned my culture here. I reclaimed my Indianness. Powerful. Other supporting literature. There's a thing called dialectical behavior therapy. And this is where two individuals come together. They have differing opinions. This is so classic, Western medicine and the native client. Two differing opinions. They establish truth through reasoned discussions. So this study done with, I'll get to that in a minute, with Native youth, use that method, use that approach, because they said that was pretty similar to what we do in our cultures. So we're going to use that one. The core skill is mindfulness. Again, let me go back to mindfulness. In the Western world, mindfulness came about in the world here relatively recently from the Western world. It was the hottest thing around. Everybody was running around getting trained for mindfulness. So I thought, okay, I don't know what this is all about, so I'm going to learn a little bit about it and see what it is. And so I went, and it is a concentrated course on being mindful of your surroundings. Think about our cultures. Isn't that what we're taught? Aren't we taught to be mindful of our surroundings in everything we do? When you go for a walk, look at the plants, look at the sky, look at the clouds, look at the animals, look at how the bird flies across the sky. Look, 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 look. You're not the only one in this world. There are others in this world, other relatives. And I'm not talking humans. I'm not talking human relatives. I'm talking everything out there. So they used that. They incorporated evidence-based practice and our ways. So culture, spiritual practices, all of that. The medicine healer was credentialed. The counselors had increased education on dialectical behavior therapy. Important concepts again. Learn the white man's way and do it better. Sample size was 229, ages 12 to 18, 39 different tribes, and there was a pre-post survey done, and the outcomes showed that, well, first of all, 77% of that population, that youth group, primarily used alcohol and marijuana, but they also had used amphetamines, opiates, cocaine, inhalation, and hallucinogens. 5 minutes. Oh, good Lord. Outcomes: 109 improved, 90 were had a culturally significant change, meaning they went into, they were recovered. I'm going to skip that one. Factors impeding arrogance. I'm going to go on this one. Arrogance. Western society says, you become like us, you learn like us, you learn our culture, you learn our ways, you learn our medicine. Arrogance. You do like us in research, in advancement. You do like us. You do research like us. In academic centers, when we do research, we want to do research with our Native communities. We're not given credit for that. We have to do research the way the academic centers want us to do research. Now that's changing a little, but it's still not honored. It's still not honored. The ivory tower syndrome, this still exists. This is a concept way back when. Whereas this lofty tower here with lofty remote intellectual considerations. This gets to the point, our ivory tower syndrome of the Western world, of people who are making the decisions about Native peoples don't know what's going on in Native lands. This is where they need to immerse themselves. They need to go to tribal nations and learn what we're all about, just like we need to go to the Western world and learn about them also. This is a two-way street here. But we see us doing that. Do we see them coming to us and learning? Chief Seattle's statement said, you take our children and teach them your ways. I want to take your children and teach them our ways. Integration. Powerful. Can you imagine what our youth would look like today if they were taught our Indian ways and the traditional ways? I'll go fast here. Factors impeding tripartite. There's a tripartite mission in academia. It's clinical research and education. That's changing. And it's now becoming a quadripartite mission. And that includes community engagements, social determinants of health. It includes those things now. So the mission is changing. Whether Western world honors that is the other question. But at least the concept is changing. We all know the homelessness, the racism, discrimination, absolutely there. It's there. I'm going to go more evidence of partnerships. I'm not going to go over those, although they're very, very, very powerful. Funding agency recommendations now. Develop, this is what I think funding agencies, governmental agencies, the Indian Health Service needs to hear. Develop recommendations and systems that liberate best practices. In other words, don't keep those best practices focused narrowly. You've got to include other peoples in your finalization of the development of those evidence-based practices. You have to. There's not just one group living in this country. And if you're serious about improving the health of Native peoples from that point of view, you need to change internally. Do no harm, stop subjugation systems. And they're still there. Lack of cultural knowledge is harmful. I'm going to give the example of hantavirus. I don't know if you remember the hantavirus outbreak on the Navajo Nation. The mortality rate at that time was 80% for those who were affected. CDC wanted to find out what was going on here, right? So they go out to the tribal nation. They come in their hazmat suits. So they're walking on the res with all this hazmat suit, and people are thinking, what? Why are they coming here? And here are hundreds of Navajo people alive and well and healthy. CDC was afraid they were going to get infected. Not the right approach. The other thing we found out, they were struggling to find out the cause of this. We brought in our medicine men. They started thinking, a group of them, they said, you know, there's a sand painting that talks about this. The mouse comes into the hogan and causes disease. I wonder if that's a connection. CDC took it and ran with it. That's where they found the virus. We know our ways. The other thing I think is so important is develop an American Indian Alaska Native section on SAMHSA's website, a separate section. Show the efficacious programs in Indian country. It may not be evidence-based practice, but we're only using those evidence-based practices as guidance. Efficacious programs in Indian country will show us what works for our people, what appears to work for our people. But we at least have to know this. What is, for example, Dr. Walker talked about motivational enhancement therapy and cognitive behavioral therapy. Those are therapies that are looking very, very promising in Indian country. SAMHSA needs to put that at front. That's what we need to know about. Those are the studies we need to know about as Indian people. Because SAMHSA says we don't have the data, so we can't really say, we don't have the data on Native, so we can't really say these EBPs are good for you. I'll show you that statement here in a minute, hopefully. So develop this website, SAMHSA, funding agencies. Develop it for our people. Provide easily accessible list of EBPs and guidelines. There's an inefficient method of searching right now. It's not like every one of us in this room can take the time to research. Researchers do. They can take the time, but not people who are working at the ground level. They don't have the time. So make the process easy for them. Provide a glossary of acronyms. Medicine is known for acronyms. Known for that. But what does that mean? SAMHSA provides that. Just a glossary. And what is missing and important to Indian country, this should be included on that website. I searched evidence-based practice suicide crisis teams because suicide is related to substance use disorders, right? Am I correct on that? I know I'm correct. No results were found. But it's important to our people to have this information. SAMHSA may not have it, but I can guarantee you another agency will. But how do we know to research that other agency? Put those things that are important for Native peoples up front in a separate section in SAMHSA. Funding agencies, this is the other thing I wanted to get to. Oh my goodness, I'll hurry. Support levels for EBP. So the evidence-based practices from Western society comes out, Western medicine research, etc. Remember that there are different levels to those evidence-based practices. There's best, there's good, there's moderate, there's minimal, and there are known risks. That information, again, is important for our people to know. What are the known risks? Now, this is the criteria that I pulled off the SAMHSA website. Another statement, it's beyond, in SAMHSA, and this was addressing youth with disruptive behavior disorders, it's beyond the scope of this kit to provide information about practice-based evidence models that may be used across different cultures. Right up front, they state it. That here's an evidence-based practice, but we don't have enough information about your people. And then they say, so go to this website, and it says, there you will find strategies on how to develop programs or, whatever. But again, SAMHSA, evidence-based practices, do those work for Indian country? And what is the evidence on this? Is it minimal? Is there minimal evidence? In other words, that means it may be just anecdotal. There was one case, 2 cases, 5 cases that supported this, but no rigorous research, best support. So there's that spectrum. Okay, I'm just going to, tribal nations, I had that integration recommendations. You can go over this. I know I'm way over time. One question I want to pose today. What if a collective, and I just named this because it just popped into my head, and I thought, okay, I'm going to use it. What if a collective across the ages was formed today, in this room? Collective across the ages means, in my mind, what has happened to our Indian people from way back when we were here to now. It also means across the ages what's happening within our age segments, what's happening within our youth, with our middle age, with our geriatric population. That's one of the most neglected populations in Western medicine, and so that group also needs to be. That's what I thought. I thought, well, you know what? What about this? What if there were some people in this room that, listening to this, said, let's get together, let's support one another. This could be a supportive forum. This could be a suggestion forum. I heard recommendations to SAMHSA this morning. That forum was too long, the GIPRA forum. This group could say, we're here, SAMHSA, to help you. We want to be included up front when you start considering forums to be developed. We want to be included up front when you're looking at evidence-based practices and how you're going to state you're going to utilize these with our people. We want to be included up front on providing best evidence practice, our ways, to you. What if this group was formed today? Just a little challenge. And my last slide, from our Eagle relatives, wisdom, clarity, strength, and beauty. Thank you.